That looks awesome. Oh my gosh, it looks awesome.
Does it?
Yes. Yo, what it is, guys? So today, I got something really special for you. And I know I say that a lot, but no, today is very special. I got my new digital gauges in from Intellitronix, and they are stellar. I'm super excited about them. So I want to go ahead and show you guys how I put it together, how I got everything to work. So let's go ahead and jump into it. If you're going to do the same thing, something that you may want to consider is if you have to use components from your original dash in order to install this new gauge cluster, because what I found out is that you've got to use the front plate and the back plate from the original 64 C10 gauge cluster in order to install this new Intellitronix digital gauge cluster. What you don't need to do is be like, oh, I got a new gauge cluster coming in, I'm gonna go ahead and sell this one for money. Don't do that. You might have a rude awakening in terms of when you go to install that gauge cluster. You've got to have that front piece and back piece. Anyway, I'm going to show you guys some of the headaches that I experienced while I was putting this bad boy together. I ran into some issues in terms of the order in which components were supposed to go. I got really confused a couple times. I looked for some videos around, but I couldn't find a lot of detail on it, and the directions weren't super clear with how you were supposed to install the old components from the old gauge cluster onto the new one. So the back plate on the 64 C10 original gauge cluster, I wasn't sure if you were supposed to install that or not, but I went ahead and did it, and I think it's correct. And for some of you guys out there, you may say, oh, that's completely wrong, da-da-da-da-da. Well, it may be wrong, but everything works and it looks great. So hopefully this is a useful tool for you guys out there. Even if I am wrong, maybe you can find the right answer in the comments. So I did run into a couple of other headaches aside from just the order in which everything was supposed to line up and attach. There was a couple issues that I had with getting some wires to clear. So I'll show you guys some of the headaches I went through on that. But yeah, I went ahead and ordered this digital gauge cluster from Intellitronix. But it's actually a refurbished one, and I got it off eBay for about 250 bucks or so. I'll go ahead and pop that up right here. So yeah, I think they generally are about 100 bucks more than that. A couple months ago, I'd gone and bought out on Craigslist a deluxe C10 64 through like 66 gauge cluster, and that's the one that includes all the gauges. I wanted to go that route originally, but after I saw this gauge cluster for 250 bucks refurbished, I couldn't help myself. It looks awesome. I even got it in green, so it matches the truck. And it also just gives this truck a little bit like this. There's just something different, something really cool about this truck that's not stock. Not that I wouldn't have really liked to go the other route with the deluxe gauges, but I decided, you know, I don't even know if any of the gauges work. I don't really want to go through all the trouble and headaches of trying to refurbish this gauge cluster, so I'm going to go ahead and sell it. Yeah, so let me go ahead and show you guys some of the footage of me putting it together. I ordered a new dash from Intellitronix. Pop this out. Looks like this is a digital gauge cluster. I'll show you where I bought that. Go ahead and pop this out of here. Let's see what all came with this. This is a digital gauge cluster for a 64 through 66 C10. That's what it looks like right there, yeah. And the name of the company again is Intellitronix, and that's what it looks like. All right, so let me show you guys what else is in the box that I've found so far. Yeah, so it came with the manual, and it came with some other components, as you can see. we're about to do is we are going to take this apart and we're going to start putting the other gauge cluster in it. I'm going to go ahead and clean up all of this. It's pretty rusty and stuff, so I'll clean it up, take it apart, and then I'll start putting everything back together. And yeah, let's go ahead and get going. This is the black glass that came with the kit. You've got to lay it into this facing, okay? And then what the kit says to do, it says to just go ahead and put the gauge cluster in on top of the glass. So I need to put these spacers in the existing holes and then be able to set it in on top of the glass. Now, the only way that I can think of, this has been my concern while installing this kit, the glass, it doesn't appear that there's anything that's keeping it from falling out once you tilt it back. But I think that these spacers are supposed to be good or big enough to keep it in place, is the way that it looks. The spacers that came with the kit. It's supposed to be a little bit over the glass, so I'm going to go ahead and try that now. Okay, so this wire right here has been the point of contention for me this morning in terms of when I went to go put the back plate of this dash panel on, it would not fit because it kept binding this wire and I kept thinking it was going to break it off. I moved this wire up a little bit that way. I moved it a little bit more north up towards the top, and we're going to see if that's going to give me the clearance I need in order to put the housing on. After a lot of trial and error, here it is. I think I finally figured it out. Okay, so washer, then circuit board, then another washer, then the screw. The problems that I was having before, it did get resolved when I moved that wire back. I don't know if you can see it that well. So there are some wires right here. One of the wires was kicked out, and when I was putting this back plate on the first time, it was wanting to crunch that, put that wire in a bind, and it looked like it was going to break where it was soldered. And so that's the reason I got so hesitant and started trying some other ways. I couldn't find a video on if this backplate needed to go on or not, but it appears for you guys watching out there that this backplate does indeed need to go on over the circuit board, over the glass. So again, it's glass, spacers, these little spacers right here, circuit board, then I put that other spacer right here, and then the back panel, and then the screw in. And there she is.
That looks cool.
It does look cool.
Do we know how to power it up yet?
No, we do not. Alright guys, that pretty much does it for us today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope it was helpful for those of you guys who are doing the same thing in terms of how to put the gauge cluster together and how to test it. If you didn't really see how we were testing it, we just got a car battery and we hooked up the hot and ground to the back of the gauge cluster. I didn't want to go through the trouble of installing the gauge cluster and finding out that it was defective. But I am super stoked. I think it looks awesome, and it's just going to make this truck just a little bit different and separate it from the rest of the trucks out there. I think it's cool that it also matches the green paint on the outside. So all in all, very happy with my purchase. I think 250 bucks, well worth it, because I bet I was going to wrap up probably close to that much in the deluxe gauge cluster just to refinish it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you like what you see so far, hit that subscribe button. Give us a like. I'll see you guys next week.